Hi everyone, thanks for joining. This is CryptoVatsik. Before we get started, I would really appreciate a like to the video, and if you do enjoy this content, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Nothing of what you're about to see is considered financial advice. These are just my opinions. Let's go. Okay, today's technical analysis video is going to cover UNI, Uniswap, Altcoin, and we're going to flip first to the logarithmic chart. I think it just gives us a more clear picture of what's going on. So right off the bat, I'm sure a lot of us have already seen this, but there's this clear downward trend line that it's been respecting for quite some time since our Pico top back in May. And I'm not one to typically use diagonals, but this downward sloping diagonal is definitely respected, right? We had our top here and then we had it again here. So 1, 2, 3, maybe even 4, 5, 6 times roughly that this area has this trend has been established and respected, okay? Now we've seen pretty much our full-blown bear market here. It doesn't mean it's over, but really what I mean by that is we've had a full move, and this upward trending price action here has really just been taken out, right? Just all the way back down right from the beginning. So full circle, full lap kind of thing. So now we just got to look at those. We got to look left to those key areas to really start to formulate a plan moving forward to get out of this bear market. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a parallel channel from this swing high, right when it got listed. Yeah, basically Uni got listed on Binance here. Because I think it formulates, some interesting spots to look at. Okay, so we've got the swing high here, down to our swing low. That ultimately played around the EQ here, deciding if it was support or resistance within this area, okay, until finally breaking to the upside, break out of the upper band, bullish retest, and then up to come up to our all-time high. And so, part of why I've come back to this is because we just need data to work with, right? So we just need something to look at to formulate a thesis using some sort of data, some sort of educated guess, right? Essentially. And if we're wrong, then we'll have our plan of action, right? So that's why I'm coming back to this area. You will notice that the volume also on a bit of a macro scale, let's zoom out again. Okay, the volume is an interesting one for me because we really saw that volume at the beginning of this coin during, somewhat of an accumulation zone in here, I would say, right? Definitely some sort of accumulation going on in there. And you'll notice that the volume during that time was pretty much the highest that Uniswap has seen on Binance. And you'll notice it wasn't even really near the top. The volume actually tapered off during this uptrend and actually came down and was actually extremely low during the top of this cycle move. So it just leads me to reaffirm my belief that you want to start to really look at accumulating during those higher volume areas, and we have yet to see that right now, right? We haven't seen that yet, in my opinion. I think we'll see it maybe sometime in 2023. So it's just something to keep in mind that volume, essentially what is smart money, was accumulating early before the actual move up. So just something to note here. So anyways, now we've got this range, okay? We came all the way down. We briefly found support at the upper band of the range here back in May, okay, until it broke down to the inside of the upper 50th percentile of this range, okay, the upper half, so to speak. And then, yeah, a nice bounce right down to the EQ, and then actually broke above. We got a bit of a head and shoulders pattern here, actually. If you count this wick as the left shoulder, this is the head, and then this is a right shoulder. That's your neckline, okay, break out of the neckline, break above the upper Bollinger upper band of the range. However, we came up into two areas of resistance here, okay? So one being that downward sloping trend, okay, that we had established. We came up to it. And then also coming right into the 200 exponential moving average, the thick gray line here moving with price, okay, that has been really respecting the price action since basically up here back when we broke below in November. Now there's definitely some sort of shelf that we're sitting on at the moment. Okay, it's basically right in here, this quadrant of the upper 50th percentile of this range. Okay, really it's that 50% of that quadrant, and we'll make the line dotted. So what I mean by that is that we've got confluence from way back here, okay, as resistance from this swing high over here. And then we've also got that breakout level here when we broke above it, okay? And so we just come back to that line over here, and we see that it's playing around. That was that shelf, that zone right here. When we got that head and shoulders pattern, okay, that shelf right there, that it was really trying to reclaim, which it did at the time. And then now we've tapped it again over here back in September. And then we actually deviated slightly below it, but really ultimately just another tap of it. And so there's definitely demand here, right? Currently still at that level, there is sitting demand, right? And it's a question of if demand is going to be enough to hold that level. My gut instinct is that it will not, just because simply we are continuously making lower lows here. Okay, so low, lower low, lower low. I would expect us to probably at least, well, at the very least, tap it again, and then maybe we move up to the trend line. Something like that if you were looking to trade it. But ultimately, I would expect us to probably come back down and retest this EQ of the overall macro range again. If we do start to pinch price right below this diagonal, okay, then I'll be closely watching a breakout, and potentially we can have that, later this year, early 2023, and then that would signal that this is potentially our bottom, and that's fine. I don't want to be too pessimistic and think this is going to come back down and make new lows for everything. But ultimately, I think that we've only tested this area of demand down here at the EQ once, okay, and you technically really only once, maybe twice, you could argue. But I would like to see us test this more. I would like us to see, test this a lot more. Over time to really establish that as a bottom before convincing me that it's not going to head lower. Okay, and so plan for the worst, hope for the best. So my plan for the worst here would be basically just assuming that this trend is going to be continuous resistance. We come back down to the EQ, and then I'll be closely watching any kind of deviations or breaks of this low right there. So basically, all the way down to potentially just under $2 from this low over here. Okay, and I know that sounds pretty bad, but getting in long term on a coin like Uniswap at below $2 provides super high opportunity, in my opinion. And just from the data that we're seeing, I have no reason to believe or to assume that we're going to just break out sooner than later. And bear markets really play with people's emotions. And let's just flip the chart for a second here and just have a look at it this way. Okay, so it's the inverse of what we just saw previously, just upside down. Okay, and so when you look at something like this looks like a very strong trend, right? We see multiple levels just being flipped here. SR level flipped there. Okay, SR level flipped here. We just see this continuation of flipping these levels, pinching against resistance, so to speak, right? Price basically pinching under resistance, consolidating, break above, okay? Pinching, consolidating under resistance, breaks above, and then as support, and then as support. So we just could see this continuation. And right now there's obviously resistance right here, but if we start to continue to do this, consolidate underneath resistance, I would expect a breakthrough, another sweep of this high at the least, right? And then if it continues doing that pinching, I would expect a break above the EQ, and then up to this, as low, or in this view, as high as under $2, or call it $2. And then maybe that's our true bottom, right? And then maybe we start to do this and we test it one more time and then we break out, kind of thing. I don't know. Anyone that knows or tells you they know where price is headed is lying, or just they think they know, and then they're clueless actually. So we have assumptions, we have predictions, and that's all we can go from is the data that we're seeing. So yeah, that's kind of how I'm looking at it. I'm just not, like I said, when I say there's nothing for me to believe or to assume at this point, what would convince me is if we start to consolidate closer, like I said, closer down to this diagonal, with a clear impulse breakout above, like a clear high volume, I'm talking high volume spike impulse move to really convince me that the trend is broken. But again, you can also have, this is why I don't love horizontals personally, to each their own, but you could also have something like this play out, right? Where price does seemingly breaks out, okay, but then kind of slow bleeds and just continues to follow the trend down, all the while making actually lower lows, right? And so that's why you got to be super careful with these, and you want to see that clear impulse on high volume that I talked about. But if I'm just looking at this chart objectively, We've got support, we've got support, okay, we've got support, and we've got support now, and it's just being swept, right? We swept this low with that low there. Okay, we swept this low with that low there. We swept this low. We swept this. We've just sweeping these lows and a continuation of the trend, right? We're not seeing swing failure patterns. We're seeing, a breakout, follow through. Okay, a breakout, follow through. Okay, so I'm expecting to see, some sort of breakout through this resistance within this zone here. Basically, this area. Okay. So what I'd be watching is a breakout and follow through. So I know, it gets a little tricky when it's upside down, but really that's what we're dealing with, right? Is there's just all these levels of resistance above now that this bear market has created, that it's just going to take time for us to build up the momentum and have that accumulation to power this up and kick off the next cycle. And though I might not believe that this is our cycle bottom at this point, it's definitely our local bottom for now, but I'll change my tune. I'll quickly change my bias if we saw something like this. Okay, so say we break back down here and we start to do something like this, okay? And we do it on high volume. Back here, okay, during this area right here, when we saw that on high volume relative to the volume that we're seeing now, and if we see something like this on high volume, okay, if volume starts really to peak, starts peaking, or get starting to increase the on balance volume as well, we start to look at on balance volume, right? Then I'll change my tune. I'll start to really think that this is potentially our accumulation area, okay? And so it's just something you have to keep in mind. Not all altcoins have to follow the same time horizon, right? We've seen our bear market rally here. We came back right from this breakout that kicked off our bull market here. We eventually saw our bear market rally. We came all the way back down to that level. Okay, we tapped it and we had a bear market rally. This was significant right here. This is at least 100%, 130% potential there, right? So that was a bear market rally, in my opinion, that we've seen on Uniswap. And so with that said, that in theory, that means that our bottom should be nearby. It should be not that far away. And, of course, fundamentally, there's a lot of other stuff going on in the world, sure, but fundamentally, technically speaking, from a TA chartist standpoint, once you've had that kind of full sell model come to completion with a bear market rally and then accumulation, something like this, then you'd start to expect that we're coming to that end of the cycle. So it just could play out longer than expected. It could be here, could be over here. We don't know, right? So we just have to be patient and understand what's going on here in front of us. And this market is very hard to trade. And if you're learning how to trade, it's best to do paper trades in this type of environment, in my opinion. Meaning fake trades. Don't actually, put money on the line unless you're extremely confident in using your risk management very well. But it's going to be difficult to trade this, and the tough part is getting good entries. Sniping good entries that have good R&R, because drawdowns from this area, down to even this low over here is, talking 30%. So they start to get really significant. So just be careful when you're trading this, if you are, unless you got a long-term mentality or vision of that accumulation that I'm talking about. So thank you again so much for joining. I really appreciate everyone, all the engagement. It really helps support the channel, and I'll continue to push out as much material as I possibly can. You can also follow me on Twitter at CryptoVatsik, and excited for the next one to show you on our next video. Exciting times ahead. Thanks again for joining. Talk to you soon. Bye.